Okay, so we're here to talk prospects, and not just prospects. We're talking about the blue chippers, the guys who will make an impact, or we think will make an impact at the big league level next year. So you can almost kind of tie this in with some like rookie of the year discussion. That gets a little bit more, I guess, detailed and nuanced because some of the top prospects are both in the AL and then some are going to be in the NL. So we kind of want to just talk about it as a whole, as just which prospects we think can really make an impact at the big league level next year, and will hit the ground running. So I'm excited to talk about those guys. So this is going to be a really fun year, I think. And I mean, and it always is with the young talent in baseball. We talk about how much young talent there is in baseball. But when you look at the Just Baseball Top 100 list, the top 3 guys are going to break in next year, barring something unforeseen, God forbid, an injury or something else. Number 1's Bobby Witt Jr. Number 2 is Adley Rutcshman. Number 3 is Julio Rodriguez. Those 3 guys should personally, I think service time aside, should make the opening day rosters outright. I think they've shown enough in the minor leagues, assuming they don't just catastrophically struggle in spring training. If there is spring training, those guys belong in the big leagues right away. I guess we could start with that trio, right? Because we're going to get more into other names as well. But with this trio, who do you think can make the biggest impact at the big league level next year? Because there's a lot of factors that go into this. This isn't saying who's going to be the best player of them all, right? Certain profiles, certain types of players have a more smooth transition into the big leagues, but the guys that may not have as smooth of a transition, once they settle in, they become superstars. So we're kind of talking about the guys that we think are going to settle in kind of quickly, and by the end of the year, have that really, really solid rookie year for their team.
Yeah, you know what? Before I answer your question, I just want to say, you said that the top 3 in the Just Baseball Top 100 will break into the major leagues in 2022. I mean, we've got 9 of the top 10 guys ready to break into the bigs in 2022. That's the thing. Like, the only guy in the top 10 that we don't see at Just Baseball cracking the show in 2022 is Francisco Alvarez, who's really, really good, but he's just not ready for that 2022 season.
Absolutely.
What's crazy is we've hit this cycle of the prospects, right? And it's always cyclical. You've got the top prospects being young guys, and they are a glimmering hope. And then there's some adjustment there. And then there's this almost front-loaded sense of the top prospects where all the top flight guys are just about to get there. We saw it with Trout and Harper, right? They were both on the cusp, and they were the can't miss guys. But then you have other times where it's Jurix and Profar, and then who else? You know what I mean? Everybody's in low A, everybody's in high A, but now everybody's in triple A, and they can crack in. To be honest, I think the guy who can make the biggest impact out of those top 3 in 2022 is J-Rod. I think Julio Rodriguez is the guy to make the impact. Adley Rutcshman's going to be really good. Bobby Witt's going to be really good. But if I had to power rank the top 3 guys, Adley, Witt, and J-Rod, in terms of the impact they will make for their team in 2022, it goes Julio Rodriguez, Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutcshman. Adley being an all-star or Adley being a work in progress will have minimal impact on the Baltimore Orioles situation in 2022. I mean, they're just not going to make the postseason. There's no shot. With Bobby Witt, the Royals are that team that wants to contend, but the way that we've workshopped the Guardians and then knowing the White Sox talent and knowing that the Tigers are on the up and up, there might not be enough wins for them. With Seattle, they were a game away from making the postseason without Kyle Lewis and without Julio Rodriguez and without a lot of their young pitchers that are going to debut in 2022. So I think if Julio Rodriguez and others make that return, make that big of an impact, I mean, the Mariners might win the AL West.
Yeah, and they went out and scooped up that Robbie Ray guy too, right? So I mean, they've got a good team, and I don't think they're done either. I think they're going to make some more moves. I like your rationale here because there's a few things that I'm thinking about when I look at these 3. And personally, I think Julio Rodriguez is going to have the smoothest transition because a lot of what you said, but then also I look at Adley Rutcshman. That's a big undertaking. Like, people underestimate how much goes into just adjusting as a defensive catcher too, right?
Yeah.
Like Dylan Dingler, a perfect example. He was spectacular in high A. And offensively, he really struggled. He hit a wall in double A. You and I don't think it changed either of our tunes as to what we think of Dingler. But the reason why he really struggled is that he got quickly sent up to AA, and now you have to handle a much more advanced pitching staff. And even his AA manager, even the head of player development over there in the Tiger system, they all said, offense comes second. We really wanted to see how he would handle the pitching staff up here. Well, we know that he'll get acclimated offensively. So, I mean, that kind of puts it in perspective. I think it's going to be similar for Adley at the big league level. He's going to make an impact because he's going to be a good defensive catcher who is still going to run into some baseballs for a team that needs guys like that. But I don't think he's going to be tapping into his potential necessarily the way Julio Rodriguez can, who honestly, I mean, they might throw him in the front of their lineup, but the guy could hit like 7th for them next year potentially. Yeah. Like, I don't think Seriously. He will. I don't think he will just because he's Julio Rodriguez, but like he's going to be in a very comfortable place. Like that's not the guy that you're afraid of right now. I think in that lineup, like you're probably more afraid of, unless he just really takes off. Like you still got to deal with Mitch Haniger. Like you still got to deal with Ty France. You got to deal with guys that really hit last year. We'll see how Kyle Lewis looks when he comes back. Kelenic was insane at the end of last year. So like that's a guy that you pair the track record of hitting. You pair the fact that he's just a bat first guy with good bat to ball skills and good power. I think he's going to kind of roll right in there. Bobby Witt, he's got some contact questions. Like I'm not saying that it's going to hold him back from being a superstar. Like he's legitimately our number one prospect for a reason, but I don't know if he's just going to hit the ground running, right? Like 74% zone contact rate. That's below average. Yes, he was playing way above his domain in terms of his experience and put up great numbers in double and triple A. But I think there might be a bit of a learning curve here for Bobby Witt. And also he's going to be expected to be one of their like main offensive pieces right away. So think about what Adley's being asked. Think about what Witt's being asked versus what Julio Rodriguez is going to be asked of. I think it's just a smoother and less pressurized, I guess, for lack of a better word, transition for Julio Rodriguez compared to these other two guys.
No, I think that's a fair word. And I think what Witt is dealing with is what Wander Franco dealt with when he first came up. It was, you're going to come up, you're going to hit 8th in your debut, but then you're going to hit 2nd. And you got to be all-star caliber in order for the Rays to maximize what they want to do in 2021 because you're Wander Franco. There are maybe 10 guys playing baseball right now that can deal with that kind of pressure from the jump. Trout was one of them. Harper was one of them. You know what I mean?
And he struggled. Trout struggled out of the gate.
He did, but then he adjusted there.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
was, rookie of the year unanimously, and he would have won the MVP, any other year besides the Triple Crown, blah, blah, blah. But Wander is cut from that cloth. I genuinely think that Bobby Witt is cut from that cloth. But if Bobby Witt is like MVP vote getter and AL Rookie of the Year Bobby Witt, that still doesn't guarantee the Royals a postseason appearance here. Versus Julio Rodriguez, looking in the same division as the Royals, is dealing with the Luis Robert thing, where Luis Robert, so talented, 27 other teams in Major League Baseball, he's going to hit 2nd in that order his rookie year. And then sometimes a lineup card comes out and Luis Robert's hitting 7th. Because the lineup is deep and you've got experience 1 through 6. That's what Julio Rodriguez is stepping into. Kelenic's going to hit ahead of Julio Rodriguez at the beginning of 2022. He has to, because he spent some time at the major league level seeing major league pitching. I think that changes within a couple of weeks, but the expectations don't need to be sky high for J-Rod right away because he's entering a good team.
I totally agree. And the thing when you talk about being cut from the same cloth as somebody like a Wander Franco, the craziest part is that, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, Julio Rodriguez's numbers in his minor league career through just about the same age and the same levels are almost to a T the same as Wander Franco's were. I think more power production, obviously some more strikeouts, but nothing egregious there. It's just Wander doesn't strike out. You had numbers that were almost identical across the board over the same sample size as well. Like Julio has that ability, that generational feel to hit that I think is going to help him just kind of roll out and be great right away. I think you bring up some good points there. And how about this though? All 3 of these guys are in the American League. It's going to be a fun, It's going to be a fun rookie of the year race. I'm looking forward to giving out our picks on that because it's going to be really interesting as to how we break that down. The thing I'll say about Witt, though, to wrap up is like, it's not just Witt that's going to feel that pressure. Like Nick Prado is going to have to take it, it's going to have to translate right away for this team to really be able to do things. Like Kyle Isbell is going to have to contribute. Like they need a lot of young guys to contribute. I think they're still going to go out and make some more moves. But yeah, I mean, you're not really banking on the playoffs. The only guy that really has to jump in and take your team to the promised land is Julio Rodriguez, whereas Adley and Witt are allowed to struggle. And that was something I talked about with Jeff Conine, on Outside the Box with Jeff, with the podcast we host. Is just, he was saying, don't underestimate the amount of pressure that goes on to these players' backs when you get to the big leagues and that team actually has to win. When you can get up to the big leagues and it doesn't matter if you struggle, it's a lot easier to go through that. But like, imagine a Jared Kelenic where that team's in the middle of a playoff race, a miracle playoff race, and you're in the middle of that lineup, or even no matter where you are in that lineup, and you need to help. You need to not be a liability. And he was a liability. Like, that's got to mount up on you. And that's why it was so amazing to see what he did over the final month. And that's why I think Kelenic's going to be great. And I think Julio's probably learned a lot from that. He was along for the ride, keeping close, watching close. He traveled, I think, for the final series up to Seattle, and everyone was freaking out like he was going to get the call up for the final 2 games or something. But I think it's a really cool opportunity for Julio to be around some vets and some young guys who went through some similar things that he did. And I think it's just a perfect situation for him to just kind of have that momentous rookie year that you don't see very often.
Yeah. And that feeling that Kelenic had to have when he went back to Tacoma, the Mariners AAA team, it was probably like, fuck, I blew my chance at a grand entry into Major League Baseball. Like, I missed the chance to be the golden boy. You know who else missed their chance to be the golden boy not too long ago? Was Julio Urias with the Dodgers. Yeah. He came up and it was, holy shit, this is Fernando Mania 2.0. Let's go. And he kind of sucked as a teenager. Or he was 20, I want to say. And
he was 19. I think
he was 19. Yeah, he was a teenager. That's what I thought, because he was like the first teenage pitcher to debut for the Dodgers since Fernando. And it was like, okay, this is Fernando Mania. Here we go. He had like a 5 ERA. Then he goes back down to Oklahoma City, and Julio Urias is like, shit, like, damn, that's my chance. I'm not the wonder kid anymore. And then Julio Urias is who he is now, which is arguably a top 10 pitcher in baseball. So like, there is a chance to bounce back. And Kelenic, we saw it in a vacuum in 2021, but Kelenic bounced back successfully. And now he looks like a piece that's going to contribute from the jump. Julio Rodriguez, if he struggles, he's going to bounce back. I don't think he's going to struggle because he's just super duper talented. I also don't think he's going to struggle because it feels like he can temper his own expectations.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's got the personality too. He's kind of been in the spotlight for a while, and I'm expecting him to kind of hit the ground running. And here's the crazy thing too, Jack, is that when we continue through these other guys that I think are going to break in next year, it's more dudes that are all in the AL through this top 10 here.